southern countries through South-South cooperation to enhance the technical and the governance capacity of partner countries. But anyway, it is widely acknowledged that South cooperation has become very important element of the global cooperation architecture for sustainable development. However, I would say more efforts are still needed to generate knowledge on South-South, both theoretically and empirically. Thank you. Thank you for your.
Thank you, Professor Wu Jin, for sharing the insights you gathered from your fieldwork and dealing with case studies of South-South cooperation, which is very interesting actually. I think we need to go to the field to see how actual projects are shaping up and what can be learned for future. So with that, let me now turn to our next speaker, who is Dr. Adriano Timosi of the South Center. And South Center, as you know, is a very important institution. Yesterday we had Carlos Correa, the new director of the South Center, with us. And Adriano has been a very important staff and official of the South Center for many years. But he also had a stay with RIS long time ago, in the beginning of his career, and so we claim some credit of his good work on South-South cooperation. So Adriano, you have the floor. Sorry.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I wish to thank RIS and a good friend Sachin, and my mentor Nagesh Kumar, because if I'm here it's because of Nagesh. First time that I came for RIS and 10 years ago. So it is indeed a great pleasure, and to be among friends, to be discussing issues that it's very dear to our daily lives. South-South cooperation is the DNA of the RIS and the South Center. Both organizations, they were created because developing countries, our leaders, they had the vision that we needed institutions that could help us to walk on our own foot, to have a collective self-reliance, and to be able to do better for our people. When you talk about South-South cooperation, as many colleagues here have said, we're not talking about competition or North-South or which one is the best, but what we are bringing. Because we talk about development, what do we bring to our people? The main goal of development is to bring a better life, to reduce poverty, to reduce hunger, to bring conditions that people can have a minimum dignified life. I've been working a few trainings with the UN System Staff College and the UN Office on South-South Cooperation with Dr. Shedjak. And these trainings are more or less 1.5 hours that I have to speak, so I bring a lot of practical examples to the students. And I always show some photos from Switzerland in the countryside and the countryside in other developing countries. So you can see that the difference is massive, but we don't want to become a Switzerland, but we just want to have a minimum life that we can give to our people. So my presentation will be very brief because most has been said. I'm trying to show a little bit of what the South Center has been doing in cooperation with your governments from developing countries that are member states of my organization, but also with institutions and academics like you. So all your comments, your criticism, or your inputs are very much welcome. Very brief because I don't have much time. So the South Center was created under leadership of Julius Nyerere, and this commission that's called South Commission worked for 3 years. The idea was that we needed to reflect on our own views, our own challenges in the South. After 3 years, this commission suggested to create a Secretariat of the South. So this Secretariat of the South started as a follow-up office, which is called South Center, And for 5 years, we've been trying to figure out where we would go, because also member states, they were also quite in difficult position to really create a kind of OECD of the South. So we didn't become an OECD of the South, we just become a small office of 25 people in Geneva. And then why in Geneva? You talk about the South, so you go to Geneva. So because Geneva is the place where development issues is being negotiated. Geneva is the place of the World Trade Organization, the World Health Organization, UNCTAD, and many other organizations. So the idea was to be there and to provide support for diplomats, because my work is in multilateral diplomacy. The work of the South Center, most of it, is to support South-South cooperation in multilateral diplomacy. So we support the G77, the non-aligned movement, and member states of all developing countries, member states of G77, in some policies and the views that we believe are the ones that we should go. Particularly on the reform of the international system, because we believe that to implement the Agenda 2030, there is a need for important reforms on the international trade, on the international system. One of them was just said by Mrs. Yuri, is the issue of WTO. An ambassador from Argentina is here who was greatly involved on the negotiations of Uruguay. So we are still waiting on the issues of agriculture. We are still waiting. The Doha development round, we are still waiting it to be implemented. But now, even worse, this will be dropped. So we may have a new round, new topics, and the long-standing topic of agriculture, that's basically one of the most important for developing countries. Maybe 80% of the poor in our countries are living in agriculture and rely on agriculture. So if you don't have an achieved agreement on this, if you don't have the long-awaited and promised reduction and access to market, reduction of subsidies. We had just a few weeks ago that the US announced that they increased $15 billion the subsidies for the cotton farmers in the US. So what about the cotton farmers in Africa that are striking to be competitive with support of South cooperation, because you can see that one of the main work also being a Brazilian, the cotton 4 countries, we are also working to transfer technology in African countries. But what about the South-South cooperation helps to transfer technology, but then when the farmers in Mali or other Western African countries, they go to the market, they cannot compete because the cotton from the US is more competitive thanks to subsidies. So this is one of the biggest challenges that we have. Okay, so what we do? We support on WTO issues, mainly on agriculture. We are supporting on the World Health Organization. We are supporting in UNCTAD. I have a very long presentation, but I have to jump on it. So let me start just here on the one of the main issues that we have been doing. So what we are doing that is really very recent is the South-South cooperation tax issues. So we have created a forum for development experts, officers from government officers from developing countries. We are getting all together and we are trying to work in a way that we can discuss how we see the issue, the landscape of tax policies. So this is one of the most important initiatives that we have started. As you know, our chairman of our board, Estabo Mebek, is very much into it from the issue of illicit funds. So we are trying to gather through South-South cooperation, multilateral issues. We are trying to gather developing countries and to make sure that we can overcome this biggest challenge, because as you know, like in Africa, $50 to $80 billion has been lost in illicit financial flows. So if we don't have a success on those international negotiations on these issues, because as you know, the US has been also very reluctant to work on these issues on the UN. Another important issue is that our work is on investment. We created also a forum for developing country officials on investment issues, because as you know, many countries, they have signed bilateral investment treaties. Those bilateral investment treaties, they have indeed impacted in developing countries. One example now is just recently, Uruguay, they changed the policy on the cigarette. So the idea is that they wanted to, the pack of cigarettes, they wanted to just not to use the name of the company. So this company, they sued the government of Uruguay. Because the government of Uruguay, they said, for public health reasons, I have the right to implement a policy that can contribute to reduce the use of cigarettes. So the company entered against Uruguay, and they asked $22 million for the government of Uruguay, because the policy that the government of Uruguay was implementing was causing potential losses for the company. So are you talking about public health and life, or talk about private interests? So this is what we have been doing in the South Center. We're trying to boost South-South cooperation in a way that can change those rules. So we are mobilizing a big gathering of developing countries on this issue. Another issue is that the Human Rights Council, initiative of Ecuador, and particularly Ambassador Espinosa, who was here yesterday, now the President of the General Assembly, she has started in Geneva very important work that is a resolution to create a legally binding instrument on TNCs and the human rights. So the main idea is that multinational corporations work in other countries, they should be able to follow their human rights obligations. Because as you know, even the least transfer of funds from these companies to another tax haven paradise is money that we could be using to promote development to our people. So, as I said, we work on another issue very important with India, the right to development. Developed countries, they don't want even to listen to the right to development. Just recently, the US has asked on the high-level political forum declaration to take out, to cut the mention to the right to development. Because for the US, right to development is a collective right, but it doesn't have any meaning in international law. So these types of things we are trying to do in the South Center, to support developing countries, to continue to be together, to work together to create conditions to implement the agenda. The existence of the G77, I think, is the best example of the South-South cooperation. Just to finish, and the climate change, another important issue, as has been said for several of your colleagues and the Secretary for Economic Affairs, what to talk about the international obligations that those countries they have, international development obligations, the 0.7%, the climate change, the fund. We see that, as has been just said, the Sweden, other countries in Europe, they are now using ODA money for refugees and for migrants. So what about their commitments? Because then you can say, yeah, but don't come with this rhetoric of south, north, south, divide. But most of these countries, they really developed thanks to protectionism, and that to some large extent they developed because of the colonization. So it's easy to me, I become rich, but don't follow my way now. You have to follow your way, and the north-south, no more money, so south-south can replace north-south. So those are issues that we have to change. The TRIPS agreement on WTO that provides flexibilities for developing countries to access to medicines. This is a fight that developing countries had in the WTO. So all those issues that I could have many others, but I know that the time is limited, but I can leave it to you. So I'm very grateful to be here to listen to you, because our vision South-South cooperation towards BAPA, you all know, is the G77 views. We are working together, so the same views that the Secretary of Economic Relations has said. So I look forward to hear from you, your inputs, and to work with you in the future to make to implement the agenda. Otherwise, we'll come back. Just said now, we'll come back here in 30 years' time, 20 years' time, with a new agenda. Maybe you'll be in the same level of the agenda of Africa Agenda 2063, but we need really to move and to make change in international system that can allow our people. And of course, we also have to do change, because if we create elite in the South that can do the same that the North did, we will be all the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you.